Today, the average modern family throws away nearly £1,000 worth of perfectly good food every single year, straight into the wheelie bin. Meanwhile, folks are cheerfully committing to monthly car finance payments that rival a small mortgage and tapping their phones to spend thousands annually on takeaway coffees that cost mere pence to make at home. We are living in an era with the highest incomes in history, yet so many people are utterly brass tacks, living anxiously from one payday to the next, drowning in a sea of direct debits and easy credit. But if we take a step back and rewind to the 1960s, a very different picture emerges. Many of you will remember a time long before side hustles, crypto schemes, or the relentless, exhausting pressure to look wealthy on the internet. You'll remember a time when a standard working-class family, living in a modest, terraced house, often enjoyed far more financial peace of mind than many high earners do today. Their secret wasn't a sudden windfall. It wasn't a clever investment trick. It was a collection of deeply ingrained, steadfast habits. Habits that by today's flashy standards seem dreadfully unglamorous, boring even. The post-war generation lived by a simple, ironclad mantra: waste not, want not. Today we're going to look at 10 of those genuinely unsexy, yet remarkably effective 1960s habits. These are the forgotten rules of wealth. The brilliant, common-sense practices that built a generation. And if you have the discipline to apply these deeply unfashionable habits today, they will quietly but surely build you a fortress of financial security. Let's start with one of the biggest wealth destroyers of the modern age, and our first habit, driving a reliable motor until it drops. Today, the moment a brand-new, computer-laden car leaves the forecourt, it sheds a quarter of its value. It's sheer financial madness. People are paying upwards of £500 to £700 a month for the privilege of driving a depreciating asset, just to impress people they don't even like. But if you grew up in the 60s, you know the culture was entirely different. You didn't finance a flash new motor every 3 years. You bought a second-hand Morris Minor, an Austin A35, or a sturdy Ford Anglia, and you kept it running through sheer willpower and weekend maintenance. You'll remember those Sunday mornings, the smell of engine oil on the driveway, the clinking of spanners, the satisfaction of tinkering under the bonnet yourself, replacing the spark plugs, adjusting the carburetor, checking the points. A car was a mechanical tool designed to get you and the family from A to B. It wasn't a status symbol. The mathematics are undeniable. The thousands of pounds you save by driving a reliable 5-year-old estate car today, rather than leasing a brand new showroom model, is one of the greatest financial advantages you can give yourself. It creates a recycling effect with your money, rather than watching it evaporate into interest payments and depreciation. This brings us to habit number 2, which took place not on the driveway, but in the kitchen, eating on a strict, predictable rota. In modern times, deciding what's for dinner has become a daily, exhausting theatrical production. We scroll through delivery apps, we wander aimlessly down supermarket aisles, and we waste immense amounts of money on spontaneous cravings. In the 60s, the weekly menu was practically set in stone. You had your grand Sunday roast, the centerpiece of the week. Monday was always cold cuts from the day before, perhaps with some chips. Tuesday was shepherd's pie. Friday, without fail, was fish. Because the menu rarely changed, the grocery bill was entirely predictable down to the last shilling and pence. There were no nasty surprises at the till. The budget was fixed, the expectations were set, and absolutely zero mental energy was wasted wondering what to cook. If you apply a 4-meal rota to your modern life, your grocery bill will plummet by a third almost overnight. But the real magic of that 60s kitchen leads us to habit number 3, clearing the larder before you restock. Today, we buy groceries with the best of intentions, only to watch the vegetables turn to a sad mush in the crisper drawer. We are a society accustomed to throwing things away simply because we fancy something else. In a 1960s household, influenced heavily by the rationing of the war years, throwing food away was a cardinal sin. It was practically unthinkable. If there were leftover potatoes and cabbage from the Sunday lunch, it didn't go in the bin. It became bubble and squeak for Monday's breakfast. Every scrap of meat was boiled down for stock. A stale loaf of bread became bread and butter pudding. You didn't pop down to the shops until the pantry and the icebox were genuinely bare. Forcing yourself to use exactly what you have today before tapping your card at the supermarket can save a modern household over £1,000 a year. And speaking of daily expenses, habit number 4 is perhaps the most glaring difference between then and now: making your own tea and coffee. Walk down any high street today and you'll see queues of people waiting to pay £4 or £5 for a milky coffee in a cardboard cup. A daily habit will comfortably set a modern worker back well over £1,000 a year. The working bloke of the 1960s wouldn't dream of paying someone else to pour boiling water over tea leaves. He took a trusty, glass-lined thermos flask to the factory, the building site, or the office. The tea was strong, it was piping hot, and it cost pennies. Making your own tea or coffee at home isn't about miserable deprivation, it's about plugging the slow daily bleed of your finances. It's about keeping your hard-earned money in your own pocket, rather than handing it over for a fleeting convenience. This absolute refusal to pay for convenience perfectly transitions into habit number 5, bringing your own snap, buying lunch out every workday. A meal deal here, a hot wrap there, can easily bleed £3,000 a year from a modern salary. Decades ago, the midday meal was prepared at home, without exception. It was a couple of thick cheese and pickle sandwiches wrapped carefully in greaseproof paper, an apple, and perhaps a slice of homemade fruitcake. You sat in the break room or on a park bench and you ate what was packed. Nobody cared if it wasn't a trendy artisan sourdough melt. Packing your own lunch is perhaps one of the most unsexy things you can do today. Nobody brags about their homemade ham sandwich on social media, but the money saved over a decade of bringing your own lunch is enough to put down a solid deposit on a house. But why is it so hard for us to save today? That brings us to habit number 6, reintroducing the friction of the high street. Online shopping has systematically removed every single obstacle between your fleeting impulses and your bank account. One click, one tap of the thumb, and a parcel arrives on your doorstep the very next day. It is entirely frictionless. In the 60s, spending money required significant physical effort. The housewife walked to the high street. She visited the butcher for the meat, the baker for the loaf, and the greengrocer for the veg. She had to queue up, count out her heavy pre-decimal coins, and physically carry it all home in a string bag. You couldn't buy more than you could comfortably carry in your own 2 hands. The physical inconvenience served as a natural, brilliant filter against impulse purchasing. If you want to stop bleeding money today, delete the shopping apps. Make a hard rule: if it isn't a strict essential, you have to drive to a physical shop to buy it. You'll find that most of the time the item simply isn't worth the effort. This physical friction also applied to what we wore. Habit number 7, build a wardrobe meant to last and stop buying clothes. Fast fashion has conditioned the modern world to believe it is a social crime to be seen in the same outfit twice. Wardrobes are bursting with cheap garments worn once and forgotten. Back in the day, clothing was an investment. You had your tough everyday work clothes and you had your Sunday best. That was the extent of it. If a woolen jumper got a hole in the elbow, you didn't chuck it in the dustbin. You got out the needle and you darned it. Make do and mend wasn't just a wartime slogan. It was a way of life. You bought thick tweed, proper wool, and stout leather shoes that could be resoled by the cobbler time and time again. They were meant to last a decade, not a season. A good quality, expensive coat worn 1,000 times is mathematically far cheaper than a shoddy, cheap jacket that falls apart after 2 runs in the washing machine. But what did they do with the money saved from skipping coffees and fast fashion? This is habit number 8. Treat yourself like a bill and pay yourself first. Today, wages hit the bank, direct debits go out, spending expands, and whatever is left goes to savings, which is usually nothing. In the 60s, this sequence was inverted. When the Friday pay packet arrived, the first stop wasn't the shops. It was the local post office. A few shillings were stamped into the savings book before a single pint was bought at the pub. They paid their future selves first. Today, automate this. Set your banking so a portion is whisked away into savings before you even wake up. You cannot spend what you don't see. And when those wages eventually went up, they practiced habit number 9, living 2 years behind your income. Today we call it lifestyle creep. A worker gets a pay rise and immediately upgrades the car or moves to a posher flat. Expenses expand to match the new income, leaving them just as broke, only with nicer things. The post-war generation didn't care about keeping up with the Joneses. If a chap got promoted, he didn't rush to change his life. He stayed in the same terraced house, drove the same reliable motor, and simply banked the extra wages. When your income rises, freeze your lifestyle. The widening gap between what you earn and spend is where life-changing wealth is forged. Finally, habit number 10 is about how we spend our time, having a pastime that actually produces something. Today, our free time is overwhelmingly consumptive. We pay for streaming, entertainment, and apps. We just consume. 60 years ago, free time generated value. Men spent summer evenings at the allotments, growing enough vegetables to feed the family for months. Women knitted winter cardigans or made preserves. You don't need to start a stressful online business today, just find a hobby that saves money or produces tangible value. Time spent building generates wealth. Time spent staring at a screen drains it. None of these habits will make you the most interesting person in the room. Nobody will be impressed by your 7-year-old car or your plastic lunch tub. The mathematics of wealth building are unapologetically boring. But here is the undeniable truth. Today's flashy spending patterns produce endless anxiety, mounting debt, and the terrifying prospect of working until you drop. The steady, unsexy 1960s habits produce quiet, unshakable financial freedom. The choice is yours. Prioritize the fleeting appearance of success today or build generational wealth for tomorrow. Take the boring path. Your future self will thank you for it. Before you go, I want to hear from those of you who remember this time. What was the strict weekly meal rota in your house growing up? Or perhaps, what was the first classic car you ever tinkered with on a Sunday morning? Let me know down in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more forgotten history. Until next time, take care.